So in your opinion, if the same TCS guy comes with a domain knowledge, meaning he understands hospitals and all that stuff, where do you think he will start?
Didn't get you, sir.
Okay. What would be his first step to gather requirements? What do you think he will do first?
He'll ask me what my problem is. Depending on that, he'll gather the requirements.
Depending on that, he'll gather requirements. Excellent. Okay, you can take your place. Generally, when I do these classes here at Berkeley, in my classes, I carry a bag of Kit Kats. You all know Kit Kats, right? So whenever there are questions and students answer, I throw them a Kit Kat. I don't know how to throw it over the web here, but maybe next time I'll ask Tirmal Rao garu to keep a bag of Kit Kats for me there. Whenever somebody answers, they get a Kit Kat. Okay, done. I don't know, Kit Kat's expensive kaadu akkadi. Ikkada cheap. Okay, good. So you need to, that is what I mean by the guy needs to know what he is talking about. That's why I said there's a relationship between that quote and what we are learning today. Okay, good. Let me mute Vijayanagaram right now. Okay, I'm muting you now. Okay, perfect. So this is the topic today. But before we go there, let's have some fun. Okay. I wanted to share. Give me some second. In case students are wondering, thank God today Professor Chillakanti is not asking us any quiz questions. You almost were relaxing on that, but unfortunately, let's say share application. What is a class without some summary of what we have learned last class, right? In the last chapter. So in that spirit, let me bring up my here. This is a self-assessment, right? So last couple of classes, we focused on agile software development. A lot of you get an opportunity to answer some of these questions. This is just a way of basically summarizing what we learned. The reason I do that, in case most students may or may not know this, once I had an opportunity to chat with my brother-in-law. Brother-in-law to my cousin sister's husband, very learned man. So I learned from him that it takes about 21 times to, if you read a book 21 times, you will memorize every line. You pretty much know if something is discussed, which paragraph, which page and all that. So the underlying meaning there is, right? It's all about rehashing what you learned. You learn once, you repeat, you discuss. There are different ways of relearning the same thing. So that way what happens is your brain assimilates all of these things seamlessly. Then it becomes second nature to you. So I try to practice that one in my class too. What we do here is like we do the presentation, we do the discussion, I ask you questions. And then when we go to the next class, we always try to summarize what we learned before. So in that spirit, let's review some of the things that we learned, right? So I'm going to now unmute Gudlavalleru Engineering College. Is a faculty, if somebody is there, you can bring one student there, somebody who's not shy, to tell me the first question. I want you to start the first question, then others can put it in chat also. In case your audio is not working, you put it in chat. So tell me what are some of the shared characteristics of different agile methods of software development. So we spent 2 classes on that. So what are some of the characteristics? Let's list some. Who wants to go first from Gudlavalleru? Don't be shy. This is your chance to shine. మైక్ ఉందా అక్కడ మీ దగ్గర? Anyone, when they have a question, they're allowed to take one pass. If they're not ready, I pass on to the next one. But Gudlavaleru has been pretty forthcoming so far. So let's start with them. Somebody is opening up their slide deck to see what those are. Don't worry about that. Try to remember. Faculty members can help them too. I see somebody getting up. Cool. Chapandi. Somebody. Scrum sprint cycle. I'll write it here. Okay. Scrum sprint cycle. That's a big term. Okay. Now, who else wants to? JNTU. I want to give Aditya. Aditya Engineering College came online, and anybody from Aditya wants to give me one more? I'll unmute others too in case they want to say diet. Diet 215. Only one. I don't want Vijayanagaram to win all the Kit Kat. So come on, guys. Aditya Engineering College. How about customer first? You agree? Now, what do we mean by Scrum sprint cycles? I assume that what they mean by that is short turnaround time, right? 2 to 3 week cycles. Okay. Big thing, right? First thing, whoever they said that, it's a good one. Anything else? We learned a lot, right? Customer first. There are at least 3 or 4 that I can narrate. See, I keep everyone honest, including myself, right? So let's see what else comes there. How about we go from, can I say less documentation? If I say let's focus on requirements documentation, would you people agree or would you people disagree? Faculty members are welcome to comment on this. How many of you agree to this? Show of hands. Okay, somebody agreed from Gudlavaleru. Okay, show of hands, Vijayanagaram. Raise your hands if you agree with that statement. I only see 2 or 3 people raising their hand. That means all of you, rest of you disagree, right? Is that actually, if you see, isn't that what this is? Let me show you a slide here. I'm going to chapter 3 here. I'll show you the diagram. Give me a second. Let me bring up the diagram, okay? Let me put this here. If you see this picture, between plan-based versus agile, you see that మధ్యలో ఆ requirement specification పోయింది. That is where a lot of documentation comes, right? So it is certainly true that the focus is not so much on a formal documentation which needs to be developed. Here we are capturing it slightly differently, like a cheat sheet. We'll focus on user stories and then we go design and implement them, right? So in that sense, yeah, it is true. We can say that there's less focus on requirements documentation. Okay, we'll go to the next question. For what types of systems are agile approaches particularly likely to be successful? Anyone can take that and put it in chat if they don't have a speaker there. 2 bullet points. Let's put 2 bullet points. Is the question vague or is it clear enough? Small and medium systems. Perfect. Okay. If I have to ask you a question there, would you apply this to mission critical healthcare automation systems? What I mean by that is, let's say, you know how there are a lot of operational procedures in hospitals now where you are able to perform operations using robotic surgery. There's a lot of software that goes into that. Or if you say you have a heart pacemaker, you have to develop some embedded software for that. Would you apply agile to those things? Yes, no. Probably no, right? Because the risks it's always about risk, right? It's too risky. You want to be 1,000 times safe for those kinds of things. So small and medium standard application software, suddenly the software doesn't work, nobody dies, then it's okay. Let me ask you a trick question. Would you apply agile software development to keep anything to do with software related to stock market? Let's say you are called by Bombay Stock Exchange to develop some real-time trading software, keeping track of those things. Do you think you'd apply agile to that? You know, that's a trick question. I don't know the answer. Quite honestly, even I don't know the answer. Whether they apply or not, I don't know. Would I apply or not? Uh, I'm really not sure on that. But it's a question worth pondering, right? So, okay, great. Okay, with that I'll move on. I'll post these quizzes there in the community. You can answer your other questions based on that. Okay. Okay. Now let's jump into today's lecture. I'll put it in presentation mode. Give me a second. Okay. Let me mute people here. Excellent. So what we'll cover today is functional and non-functional requirements. We'll understand what they are. We'll look into the process. Remember, I asked the student in the beginning, where would they start? She said she will ask the customer what is their problem. So she basically was trying to jumpstart the requirements elicitation. Okay. So you elicit, then you create some kind of formal thing called requirement specification. And then there's a thing called validation of the requirements, and then change. How do you handle change? Okay, so these are the topics. So how do you define requirements engineering? The process of establishing the services. Okay, so what does the customer want? And what are the constraints, right? It's important to understand the constraints. I remember when I was a graduate student, we even learned something called constraint-based methodologies. See, we all want everything, right? There's an English saying called pie in the sky. Somebody wants to build something, they give so many requirements as if the world is open to them. We say the guy wants to build a pie in the sky. So when you build a pie is like an apple pie or a cake in the sky. Cake is understood in Indian terms. It won't stand, it'll crush, it'll fall down to earth. So there are always constraints when you are building an application. So we need to understand what those constraints are. Okay. Then requirements are nothing but you describe those things. So you have different ways of representing what you learned in documents. Okay, those become your system requirements. Okay. Now, what is the requirement? It could be a high-level abstract statement. Okay. Most of the time. Or it could be a mathematical functional spec. So we learn, I mean, I do not know how strong mathematical specs are taught in the engineering colleges there. If you talk to mathematicians, for them, wow, ideal was the one which was giving me a lot of static. Okay. So if you talk to mathematicians, everything can be boiled down to a mathematical functional spec. What is a mathematical functional spec? That's a good question, right? What is a function? That goes back to some basic foundational things, right? You all went through entrance exam. You were all super brilliant in math, and then you got into these engineering colleges. Okay, we all and most of the focus of the test is mathematics, right? So what do we mean by mathematical functional specification? In general, what is a function? I don't know if I can. I'm so old now, I forgot all my math. I don't know if I can define it formally, but there's a notion, a function, there's a notion of inputs and outputs, right, for functions. Is that a fair statement to make? Right? If I have a function, generally it takes certain inputs, right? And then it produces an output. So most of the mathematical specifications tend to be like that. They say, okay, here is something that the system needs to perform. Here is what it is going to get. And here is what it's going to produce. Something happens between the input and output. That is called the processing of the function. Okay. Okay. So now, so it's important to capture those things. One way is mathematical function, but there are a lot of other ways of capturing that. That's what we will learn in this course. Okay. Now, why do we need the requirements? So you can see here the different permutations and combinations as to why we need that requirement, right? It could be a basis for a contract, right? Let's say you're bidding on developing a training reservation system automation for Government of India. All the railway reservations are automated now. You know that, right? Somebody gave a very formal definition here, Chakravarti Garu. Relation between a set of inputs and a set of permissible outputs with the property that each input is related to exactly one output. Huh. That's an interesting thing. Each input is related to exactly one output. From a software engineering term, um, I'm not sure if I agree with that, right? Think about it. Students, you can think about it. The statement was made that each input is related to exactly one output. Why cannot it be a one-to-many relationship? Tirumala garu cheppandi. Let me unmute you. Okay, I
It's
unmuted you.
yeah, it's a mapping from one to input to the output, having both one to one and one to many relation on and on to they say. So
Correct.
it's in fact as you said, sir. It contains
Correct.
both one to one and one to many, sir.
Correct. Correct. Exactly. Perfect. Great. I can also see chat. Okay. Uh, your students are very lucky, Andy. The students who are in these online classes, they are getting the benefit of so many faculty members also. It's a collective wisdom that they are gaining. Amazing. Okay. So you can see Davis, I don't know, some big quote here. What does it say? If a company wishes to let a contract for large software development, it must define its needs in a sufficiently abstract way. That solution is not predefined. Very important thing, right? Oftentimes, when a customer is giving you requirements, they say so many things. Sometimes they even tell you how to implement it. So what we say is, I'll go back into my slide mode here. The focus of requirements should be on what, but not how. Very important distinction, right? Oftentimes when you go to a client, in the name of requirement, they are also, because they have practical knowledge and wisdom about their domain, right? They know what the problems are. And their experience kind of tells them, hey, how it could be solved also. So when they are calling you, let me mute here. When they're calling you to develop a solution for them, in their enthusiasm, they tell you how also. So your role as a requirements gathering specialist is to somehow bring them back to the what of it. What do you want? Don't tell me how you want me to solve the problem, right? I mean, you have to do it in a polite way, right? Okay. Now, an interesting story, by the way, is typically when you go there, when you talk to the stakeholder, they really don't focus on what. You know what they focus on? In my experience here, uh, you have to pardon my language. Okay, I'm more, as I told you upfront, my American way, right? We call it in US, we call it like a bitching session. What does it mean? They complain. They talk a lot. Oh, this is not working. That is not working. And then these people are not allowing us to automate. Politics are coming in the way. All this, it's almost like you are conducting a therapy session with the client. You have to put up with all that and then bring them back to, okay, what do you want to solve? What is the problem? As the girl in the beginning said, hey, what problem are you trying to solve? Let's focus on that. How to solve it is up to you. You will figure it out. Okay. Let me go here. Here is a good example. Let me put it in slide mode. Here is a great example. Let's see that. So here is a user requirements definition. The meant care system shall generate monthly management showing the drugs prescribed by each clinic during that month. Take 10 seconds to simulate that. So the way I look at it, they have this ment care system and they have many clinics, right? Each clinic is going to prescribe some drugs to the patients coming to the clinic. Let's assume there are 10 clinics. So they want to keep track of all the cost of drugs during that month. Okay. That is what the user says. Now, how do you break that one user requirement into a complete spec? Okay. So when do you do that? On the last working of each month, a summary of the drugs prescribed, their cost, and the prescribing clinic should be generated. Okay. And then you say, okay, system shall generate the report for printing after 17:30, 5:30, because typically the office is closed at that time, right? And then you create a clinic, you create a report for each clinic. And then you break it down by drug name. Somebody is talking, go ahead. Were they talking about this? Okay, somebody is not muted here. Okay, let me mute them here. So you understand how you took one sentence here and you broke it down into all the permutations and combinations of that. What are the details associated with that? Okay, it is not an easy job. Now let me ask you this. I'll tell you why I like this example, right? Do you think, how do you get to 1.1 through 1.5 from statement number 1? I gave an opportunity to Vijayanagaram, so let me go to another college now. This is a very important point that I want to make here. Let's see, is Gudlavaleru still there? Yeah, so I'll unmute Gudlavaleru. Here is a question. Question is from 1, how did we come from 1 to 1.5? What is the thought process? How did the consultant just come up with that? What happened? What do you think would have happened between 1 and coming up to 1.5? Anyone ready from good level area to talk about that? That is the crux of really requirements elicitation and all that. Somebody is walking. Are they trying to talk or they just are sitting there? Okay, they are silent. I'm going to mute them. I'll go to Aditya Engineering College. It's your turn. The question is, Aditya Engineering College, this is for you. How did we come from 1 inch, how did we break it down into 5 steps? What happened there? Oh, Gudlavaleru said it's functional requirement. I agree. But what do you think happened there? A consultant came and they started taking it. Something happened between the consultant and then the client. What do you think would have happened? How did we come from the top to the bottom? Aditya Engineering College, go ahead. Please state your name. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, sir. It is like constraints which is offered by the authorized person. So it is not a functional requirement. This is a constraint. It's a non-functional requirement.
Okay. So by the way, I can't see you on camera. Can you face the camera?
Is it okay, sir?
I think yeah, now it's perfect. So tell me, please state.
Prasadana from Aditya Engineering Science.
Excellent. Cheppandi. Go ahead.
Yeah, from the user requirement point of view, the 1.5 is talking about the non-functionality of a system, so which can be accessing by the only authorized person can view the reports.
Excellent. Excellent. That is one thing. But how did we? Was there some dialogue that would have happened between the consultant and the user to come up with those five, or do you think those five were documented by the client?
So, sir, the reports shall be restricted. Hello?
Okay.
The reports shall be
Cheppandi,
restricted.
we are listening.
That's the reports has been generated. So with limited period or the limited time, sir. That's what I understood.
Excellent. Okay, excellent, excellent. I think that's a great point.
Thank you, sir.
I'll mute you now. Anyone else wants to comment on that? Put it in chat. Whatever Prasad Rao said is right on. But for me, let me add on a few more things there, right? Let's assume, I mean, this is all assumptions, right? Probably this is what their existing process was. One option is the existing guys, they probably produce a manual report every month like this, so they would have listed these things, right? The other thing would be the consultant would have had a dialogue with the customer, right? So they would have gone to the stakeholder of the Medcare system, and the management there, since remember the consultant has some domain expertise. Without domain expertise, a consultant cannot proceed forward. So when I look at the first one, the questions come to me when you say monthly, what do you mean by monthly? When do you want me to produce the reports? It's a legitimate question I would ask, right? Let me go to the white screen here. Bear with me for a second. I will go to the white screen. I'll go to a new whiteboard here. I'm writing here, right? I would say what day of the month you want the report to be generated, right? I would start asking questions like that, right? What is my other question that I would ask? Then I would, since I have the domain report, right? I would say what data you want to capture in the report. Now, what would that question give me? So this one would give me the answer end of the month, right? Okay. I'll type here. This one would give me that answer end of the month. What data you want to capture in the report? So maybe here I would say I want to capture the drug, the dosage, cost, clinic, right? Quantity. See how I'm saying, right? So the moment you say report, right? As an analyst, as a business analyst, the first thing that I ask is, okay, what do you want to capture in the report, right? What is the frequency? Okay. Once I know those two things, right? And then would I also ask a question like as, what is the purpose of the report? Do you think that it's a legitimate question that I would ask as a consultant to the stakeholder? You can put it in chat now. Is that a legitimate question that I would ask? What is the purpose of the report? So I would say that that is a legitimate question. The reason is you are making the customer think. The role of an analyst, oftentimes, in these academic classes, some of the people here, they don't focus on that. You should have as a consultant the ability to question the customer about the requirement. Okay, very important skill for a consultant. But when you question it, you have to question it politely, right? If you say, why do you need it? It's not about telling the customer, no, you don't need it. It's about making the customer understand the purpose of these things. Sometimes the customer may not know that whether they really need it or not, because it could be either in some other report. I'm giving you only one example here, right? There's 50 reports. Like I have a project in Cisco where we produce 60 reports for the management. Each and every report serves a purpose, right? So your role as a consultant should be to understand that overlap, right? If the guy is saying, no, I want this report with these details, if you know there's another report which is producing all those details, there's no need for you to develop a new report, right? Okay. So these are some of the things that you do in the process of having the dialogue. You get those 1.1 through 1.5. Now, it does not mean the customer cannot come with those things to begin with. Remember, the customer knows a lot. So even though it's easy to say in theory, focus on what, the customer will mix up what and how in the interview with them. Your role as a consultant is to filter those two and come up with a document, which we call it as a requirement spec. Okay, I'll go back to my slide now. Okay, I'm sharing my slide. Okay. So who reads the requirement spec? Did I skip a slide? No. You can see here there are user requirements. Who reads that? Client managers, system end users, engineers, contract managers, different type of people, right? System requirements are system end users, client engineers. What are the system requirements? These are typically like performance, security, all those things are system requirements. Fail safe, meaning fault tolerant, distribution, geographically distributed, and things like that. We'll see the difference as we go along. Okay. Now here are the stakeholders. By the way, students, this is one area where it might look dry to you, but it is an important activity, right? So you have to bear with it. I'll try to make it fun very soon. Okay. During the break, I'll make it fun. So you have all these stakeholders. They are all the people who would be using the system, or they're either affected or using the system, and they will have a legitimate interest in that. So who are the different people associated with a new project? You have end users, you have system managers, you have owners, and then you will have external stakeholders, right? If I'm building a product where my customers or my partners are going to be interacting with that, then you will have external stakeholders. Okay, let me see why I'm not able to see the chat here. Oh, okay. By the way, a gentle announcement was made here that after the class is over, I will upload the next 3 chapters in the forum today. Okay, chapter 4, 5, and 6. Thank you, Andy, for reminding me. Okay, now let me go back here. So who are the stakeholders in the mental care system? It's a healthcare system, right? You have patients, you have doctors, you have nurses, you have receptionists, you have IT staff. Fairly easy to understand, right? Remember, I gave you the example of a emergency care system. That's what they are. How is the patient? Let me ask you a question here. How is the patient a stakeholder in the system? Why is patient a stakeholder? Just because I got a slide deck from one of the famous writers, Ian Somerville. He is the author of the textbook. I don't have to agree with everything that they say here, right? I would argue patient is really not a stakeholder. Do you think the patient sit in the emergency room will open up his laptop and log into his system to check his statistics? Would a patient ever use this system? You can put in chat. Why would a patient be a stakeholder? I don't think patient is a stakeholder at all in the system. I cannot foresee a patient interacting with the system. We are capturing the patient information, right? Patient name, address, telephone number, nearest relative when they are admitted. If the patient dies, you have to inform them, right? I mean, I don't mean to be gory there, right? So the word stakeholder uh, is used in general way here. But most of the time when you use the word stakeholder, I would focus more on, if I put it in this one here, in when I'm doing the analysis, what I would focus on, let me create a slide here. I would focus on who the users of the system are. Meaning they literally touch, feel everything, right? Who are the users of the system? That's what I would focus on first. Okay. The word stakeholder has a slightly different meaning. Is the hospital administrator, the hospital CEO, is he a stakeholder? He is, because he's paying for the system. Okay. In that sense, I would still not say is the patient a stakeholder? Here I would say yes. The patient a stakeholder? I would argue he is not. Faculty members are welcome to discuss that. See, the word stakeholder means they have some stake in that system. CEO obviously is a stake because they have to foot the bill. Patient won't care less. Patient is there to get the care. They just got joined. So patient is something that we have to model because it's all for the patient. So what Ian Somerville in his slide deck is basically saying is, hey, the system is all about the patient. Without the patient in the system, how would we even build a system? It's useless system, right? So in that sense, he's using the term loosely as a stakeholder. But if I have to be precise, patient is not a stakeholder.
So I have a doubt here.
Go ahead.
Now if the patient suppose say is not a stakeholder, let me agree that's correct. But if the bills which are generated to be paid by the patient is not transparent and readable enough for the patient to pay, how can it be? How can I say that he cannot be a stakeholder? If a patient should be readable for the patient to read understand the bills what he has to pay.
Okay, that's a great point. That's a great point. So that basically means, if I go back to the slide here, let me go back to the slide. Okay. So, is there anything written here that the user has to read the bill? Any billing mentioned here? Nothing, right? And then they said it's management reporting, correct? But your point is very valid though. If you say somewhere in the requirement, I say the patient should be able to access his bill online, right? If I change the statement here, should generate monthly management reports. I think they put it as text box. I'm trying to see how I can change it. So if I say somewhere in the report saying the system is accessed by patients online to pay their bill, then what you said, I completely agree with you. Right? Because now all of a sudden I have to make the interface available to a patient. Then the patient becomes a user of the system. Right? In that sense, what you said is absolutely right. But I cannot, from this statement on the top, imagine that is indeed the case. Make sense? But that's a very good point because this is where you enter into a dialogue. Right? If Tirubal Raugar was the consultant there talking to the hospital guys, he would actually have asked that question to them. Hey, do you envision a patient accessing your system to look at his bills and pay online? If the guy who is building the system, the customer says yes, then patient becomes a stakeholder. Now, what is the other meaning behind these things? There is no formal way of doing that, right? It is like we cannot make assumptions. Your role as a consultant is to ask these kinds of questions. That is the reason number one criteria for you to do a good job of analysis, you need to understand the domain. So that way you can ask the right questions. Now, another important aspect of that would be, do you think you can get your requirements all done immediately, quickly in one pass? Absolutely not. It is a continuous process because day one of the meeting, we'll brainstorm, we'll come up with something. Then I will capture that in some diagrams and show it to the customer. And the customer would say, oops, I forgot to tell you this yesterday. So that cycle keeps going on like that. Okay, let me move on. See that one? Interestingly. Okay. Okay, now this is where we start looking at the comparison and contrasting, right? Many agile methods argue that producing detailed system requirements is a waste of time because requirements change quickly. Okay, so the document is always out of scope. So we get into, when you talk about agile, we always get into requirements are incremental in nature. Okay, and as we studied in chapter 3, right, what do we call them? User stories. Okay, and we know the fourth bullet point too, right? It's good for business applications, but then it's problematic for other systems, right? Mission critical systems. So I see how all these things are getting tied slowly. Okay, now let's focus on how are we doing on time? Does anyone need a small stretch break of 3 minutes? How about we take a 3-minute break here? Go get my tea, okay? Huh? Okay, 3 minutes.
Hello, MBA college. Hello. Audio is coming. you can set your settings now. Quick start and off the option of using ప్రసాద్ రావు గారు మీరు మాట్లాడినప్పుడు మైక్ అండ్ కెమెరా మాట్లాడినప్పుడు ఇప్పుడు కాదు సార్తో స్ట్రైట్లీ డైరెక్ట్ టు ద కెమెరా. And Prasad Rao garu, when students come back and ask everybody to sit this side so that everybody will be visible. Okay. కళ్యాణ్ గారు ఆడియో ఇంకొంచెం పైకి పెట్టు, అయితే నువ్వు దూరంగా వెళ్ళు ప్రసాద్. ఓకే ఓకే ప్రసాద్ ఓకే, ఇటు చూడు, కెమెరా వైపు చూడు. That is Aditya or Sai Aditya? Prasad.
Yeah, yeah.
అన్మ్యూట్ చేసుకో, అన్మ్యూట్ మీరు అన్మ్యూట్ చేయి. అక్కడ నీ మైక్రోఫోన్ అన్మ్యూట్ చేయాలి. మైక్ సింబల్ ఉంటా చూడు, దాన్ని క్లిక్ చేయి. ఇన్ వెబ్ఎక్స్ యూ నీడ్ టు అన్మ్యూట్.
Sir, is it okay, sir?
Yes, okay now.
It's only Aditya, sir. Aditya Engineering College only, sir.
Right. So where are Sai Aditya people?
Sir?
Sai Aditya, Sri Aditya.
Probably they are conducting at their colleges only, sir.
No, they are not logged in. So we can see all the people who are logged into these sessions.
I didn't understand, sir, please.
See, whoever logged in, we could see their faces. Okay, so see, Bottleware Engineering College, they are logged in. JNTUK Vijayanagaram, they are logged in. MBJR, they are logged in. Dadi College, they are logged in. Ideal College, they are logged in. So where are Sri Aditya and Sai Aditya? Ask one faculty from Sri Aditya and Sai Aditya to call me, okay?
In this block, sir. So for this block only, sir.
So we will send one mail to Sai Aditya and Sri Aditya also to connect to this website.
From Sai Aditya, Santoshi is organizer, sir, coordinator. Santoshi.
But she is not logged in now.
Sir, she is?
She is not logged in.
Okay, sir. I will call her to log in, sir. I will ask her to.
Okay. And also Sri Aditya also. Because
okay.
Since it is an audit course, everybody should take advantage of this course.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, make mandatory for all the students and take advantage of this course, because all final years they will go for this campus interviews very soon, and this software engineering in practice subject will be very, very useful.
Yes, sir. We have been motivating our students like this only, sir. And it's a great classes, sir. Seriously. So we have been learning a lot from this session, sir.
Okay, then bye.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I am back. Somebody was not able to hear me. Okay, everyone is able to hear me now? I see in Aditya Engineering College the teacher is Madam మీ పేరేంటి?
Sirisha sir.
Can you repeat?
Sirisha sir.
Sirisha, okay. So are you a faculty member there?
Yes sir.
Excellent. What do you teach software engineering?
Yes sir.
So where did you go to college? Where did you graduate from? I don't know what you are seeing. Are you seeing my picture there, video?
We are seeing your video sir.
You probably are seeing me enjoying my tea and biscuit. Thank you, madam. Looking forward to interacting with you. So while we are enjoying tea, I should tell you a story. So, so most of the students, I think they were when they introduced me, they told you that I'm a dad of two sets of twins. I have twin boys and twin girls. And now my girls are 15-year-old. So one of the daughters, she's really a daddy's girl, right? So sometimes she sneaks up on me when I'm doing these online lectures. I think mostly she has seen her in one of the lectures, I think. So she asked me a question when I get the tea. She asked me a question saying, Papa, do you allow students to get their tea and coffee to your classroom? My answer was yes. I don't know if, but then she asked me, do they allow like that in India? I don't know the answer. I've never seen students with any teacup or coffee mugs in the classroom here. Are they allowed to drink tea, coffee, milk, or whatever? Not beer, of course. I'm just curious. Faculty members can tell me. As far as I am concerned, students are very welcome to enjoy their tea or coffee while listening to me, okay?
Here it is not allowed, sir, actually.
Oh, it's not allowed. Oh, sorry. See, and you're not recording me, right?
Well, the old system we are following, Guru Shishya system, but US is, I understand the way because I have interacted with John Hopkins and all directly,
Yeah.
Hofcraft, and also I understand the difference of education here. But here, for the timing, it's not allowed in IITs also.
Oh my God.
ISC Bangalore, IITs, they don't allow, but PhDs, they have informal sessions a lot. MTech, they have informal sessions in IIT and ISC Bangalore.
What about faculty members? Are you allowed to drink tea while lecturing?
Fact can have a choice, but the schedules are quite different. The way of teaching in US and India is quite different. So no need to have the tea in the class time. As far as my opinion, sir, it's not that it's a radical opinion I'm giving here.
Mm-hmm. Good.
It's not like a relaxation. What is happening like this now? We have a very solid 50-minute sessions. So 50 minutes before that we can have a tea. After that we can have a tea. 50 minutes you can have it in the class time. Class time you can have the 50 minutes.
I agree with you. I hope I'm not wild. Okay, good. Okay, so we'll continue. So functional and non-functional requirements. So I'll increase the pace a little bit more because I want to talk about the projects too, right, today. So what are functional requirements? They are standard services that the system should provide. Okay, let me unmute you guys. I'm getting static here. Kalyan అనేది ఏంటి అది ఏ కాలేజ్ కళ్యాణ్ కాలేజ్ అది and I'm not able to mute them. Okay. So functional requirements basically means like what are all the things that you want the system to do, right? Like there are inputs, there are outputs, you model all of them in certain ways. In all of your projects, you will be producing those documents. We'll specify what those documents are and you'll produce those things. Now, non-functional requirements are equally important. In the beginning, we talked about constraints, right? Constraints are really non-functional requirements. I have security requirements. Those are non-functional. Functional meaning they do certain function, right? Non-functional means if you take security, I say, hey, passwords have to be encrypted. Passwords have to be 6 to 10 characters, okay? Some of those things are kind of like fall on the border of non-functional and functional. But most of the time when we talk about non-functional requirements, it deals with security, it deals with performance, it deals with reliability, it deals with fault tolerance, right? Fault tolerance is an interesting one because uh, it is in one sense a functional requirement depending on the context, right? If I'm talking about a banking system, fault tolerance is a very important requirement for me. So I could even argue that it's a functional requirement. Okay. Domain requirement, meaning if the system is working in a bigger domain, you may be developing one small business app for an institution, but there are a lot of other domain requirements. Remember when Professor Murthy Garu, I didn't see him today, but he'll be busy in JNTUK Kakinada recruitment today. Remember how we talked about developing an information system for JNTUK Kakinada? So if you're developing a student record system that should then fit within the domain of the entire HRMS in JNTUK Kakinada, right? Enterprise Resource Planning Software. So you'll get some domain requirements as well like that. Okay. Somebody wants, oh, they are just sitting there, or Chapandi?
Sir, I have a query regarding the difference between domain and functional requirements. With some example, please.
You want the domain and functional requirement example?
Yes, sir. Exactly what will be happen?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Let's say the domain is JNTU Kakinada, or let's take Aditya Engineering College. Okay, so in Aditya Engineering College, let's assume you have a enterprise resource planning software. Okay, so you'll have a system for course scheduling. You'll have a system for billing. You'll have a system for lab scheduling and so on. There are many applications within the domain. Okay. Now, and you bring in a consultant to develop a student registration system. Okay. Now, so when you're building a student registration system, would the domain impose certain constraints on that? It would, because whenever a student is registered, the spec would say this has to feed into your enterprise resource planning software.
Yes, sir.
Got it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got it.
Okay. Any follow-up questions on that?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. So here are some description of functional requirements. You specify the functionality. Who are the users? Most of the time, functional requirements, you start off with who are the users and what do they do with it. Okay. And you have seen from the very first example, they could be high-level statements of what the system should do. See, the focus is on the what. Okay. Not the why. Then you get into functional system requirements where you specify all the system service in detail. Okay. So here are some examples of functional requirements in the Ment Care system. A user should be able to search the appointment list for all clinics. Okay. This is very interesting. See this one here. When I say user, who is the user here? Is that the potential patient? They are, right? Remember how Tirmal Rao said he would argue that the patient should be a stakeholder too. So the very first requirement immediately tells me the patient is a stakeholder, right? You see the thing there? He was looking ahead. Okay. So absolutely, here a user is really the could be patient. By the way, I'm making a big leap of faith there, right? I'm assuming the user is same as patient. Okay. System shall generate each day for each clinic a list of patients who are expected to attend appointment. So you're keeping track of all the appointment calendars there. I like the uniforms in that Aditya Engineering College, by the way, some purple color uniforms. I didn't realize that in colleges they have uniforms. Nice to know. Okay. So each staff member using the system shall be uniquely identified by his or her 8-digit employee number. So all of them have a unique ID. That's a very important concept. Most of your third, fourth year students, I gather, from databases, you learned the concept of a key. A key is a field or a set of fields which would uniquely identify each and every row in a database. So to me, this 8-digit employee number seems like a unique ID. Okay, let me continue. What can happen, what can go wrong, or what can be confusing, right? Problems arise as functional requirements are not precisely stated. Okay. Requirements can be interpreted in different ways. Okay. Here is an example that he gave, right? The term search. So user might have intended search for a patient name across all appointments in all clinics. The developer interpretation is search for a patient name in an individual clinic, right? So there's a gap between what the developer understands and what the user's intention was, right? Let me ask you this question here, right? These are all very interesting things. If you notice, I ask a lot of questions because I think most of the knowledge really comes through interaction, right? Where would we catch this error? The user intention versus the developer interpretation. Where do you think in the software development lifecycle we would catch that error? That is the question. Madam, you're talking. Why don't you come to the speaker and talk? Unmute yourself and talk. Aditya Engineering College. Madam, go ahead. Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
If we set something, if redundancy occurs, I think that is the problem.
Can you repeat?
If we set something, redundancy occurs, if we search for some patient name or anything else, if redundancy occurs, I think that is one of the problem arise at that stage.
Correct. So where would you catch, my question is, where would you catch that error? If you take the last bullet there, you're saying user intention is searching for a patient name across all appointments in all clinics. The developer interpretation is search for a patient in an individual clinic. Where would you catch that error in a software development lifecycle?
At the testing errors, testing side.
Excellent, excellent. You catch that error at testing. Now, the question, let's continue where other faculty members are welcome to interact too. Is there a possibility of catching it sooner? Is there a possibility? Okay. If so, when would you catch that error?
At the architecture level, sir.
Excellent, excellent. At the architecture level. Excellent. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
See, student, the reason I'm probe that question further is right. The sooner you catch the error, the better it is from a cost perspective, right? Let me mute that. Okay. So the sooner you catch the error, right, the better it is from a cost perspective and also timeline perspective, right? If you catch errors, let us say after production rollout, then what happens? Then you will have to go through the process of release engineering again, right? You have to rectify that error. Then you have to do a new build. Then there'll be a deployment life cycle. Whenever you do a deployment, it's usually done on a weekend. Your IT staff has to be there on the weekend. And maybe if they work on the weekend, you have to pay overtime, right? So it's always good to catch most of these things upfront at the design and architecture level. This is one reason why we say agile is good, right? This is all the more reason for business applications agile works, because your development life cycles are very short, 2 to 3 weeks, right? It's not like 2 to 3 months. So it's much easier to catch these kinds of interpretations upfront. Okay. Requirement should be complete and consistent. Okay. Everyone says that. That is the mantra, right? Completion means they should include descriptions of all the things required. Consistent means there should be no conflicts. Okay. I like the last statement because it's impossible to produce a complete and consistent requirements document. Okay, keep that in mind. In the good old days when object technology came into existence way back in late 80s and early 90s, I was a practitioner of that. I was actually the very first person pretty much in the industry to produce a complete curriculum to train HP software engineers worldwide in object-oriented development, technology development. One of the very first. Actually, because of that, Professor Ramamurthy from Berkeley invited me to teach courses in software engineering at Berkeley on the main campus. Okay. This used to be, and then of course I became a consultant in the industry doing object technology, right? So I used to hear stories from my client, how here I am, Pratap Chillakanti, a small guy doing consulting, and then there are high-powered guys from big 5 firms like I won't take the names. Let me put it that way. They are all 10,000 plus employees, right? They go to the same client. They are working with me, and they have been doing analysis for 6 months. The big thing that we do in object-oriented technology is use cases, right? Use case modeling. So what we call that as analysis paralysis. Okay. In the name of completeness and consistency, don't spend too much time. Okay. The client does not have time. They want to see results, right? So do the best that you can and move on. Okay. Don't spend too much time on analysis. Okay. You can see a nice big hierarchy here of non-functional requirements, right? You have product requirements where we talk about dependability, security, and so on. In the third level, you can see that. You have organizational requirements, right? What is the operation stream, how they operate, their team structure. And you have external requirements. Let's say you're building a system which has to comply. Let's say you're building a healthcare system here. We have a requirement called HIPAA requirement of the government. If you're building anything to do with Wall Street, right? We do not want another fiasco of what is that software firm that went belly up? There was that firm in Hyderabad. I won't take the name, but you know what it means, right? So there are a lot of SEC or the equivalent of SEC requirement there, right? How companies should not cook books and things like that. Okay, so those are all external requirements. So it's a combination of all of these things which would make non-functional requirements. Now this should in no way scare you off. It's not like they say, oh my God, I have to do all that. No, it's usually a team which does that, right? It's not one consultant. When you're going and building a system, remember one of the first things we talked about pair programming. I will always call it as pair analysis too. It's not just programming. A team of 2 works better in capturing the requirements from a client. Okay. In the industry, we call it like a business analyst and an IT analyst. Business analyst starts capturing some of the requirements, and then slowly the IT analyst would come and give them a helping hand on that. because IT analyst also has implementation knowledge, right? So there would be some questions related to operation of the system. So it's always better to have a team of two, typically a business analyst and an IT analyst join the effort. Okay. You can see the importance of non-functional requirements. They affect the overall architecture of the system, right? See, for example, good example, performance requirement, right? So to meet a performance requirement, you have to organize the system to minimize communication between components. Vaguely said, but it's valid, right? The more communication what does communication between components mean? Passing some variables, right? Passing some data from one subsystem to other subsystem. So that's all messaging, right? Between one subsystem to other subsystem. Somebody is trying to talk. Kalyan?
Yes, sir.
Let me unmute Kalyan. Okay, now try. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead. Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. We had some problem with the audio. It's now sorted.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can now hear you very clearly.
Okay, perfect. I just muted you there. Okay. Maybe I should put the chat up here somewhere. Hold on. Okay, got it. So here is a non-functional requirement with respect to product. It should be available to all clinics during normal working hours, right? Perfect. Downtime within normal working hours shall not exceed 5 seconds in any one day. So they are giving a performance requirement there for you, right? Organizational requirement: users of the Medcare system shall authenticate themselves using their health authority identity card. Okay, so that means there's some kind of a ID number, maybe that can be scanned, and then you can identify them. Okay. See that one here, external requirement. The system shall implement patient privacy provisions as set out in HSTAN. I don't know what HSTAN 032006 are, but there's some kind, like for example, in US, we call it the HIPAA law. There are a lot of data privacy requirements. So that's what that is. Pretty straightforward. Notice one thing here, non-functional requirement may be very difficult to state. That's okay, but do the best that you can, right? Okay, how do you verify a non-functional requirement? So whenever you give a requirement, right, you should have some kind of a measure. There's a saying in the industry, what you cannot measure, you cannot improve. Okay, in general. So there'll be some kind of metrics. In this case, we'll talk about performance, what do you call it? Performance metrics. We measure the performance. So there are various ways of testing those things. Okay. Okay. Usability requirements, right? System should be easy to use by medical staff and should be organized in such a way that user errors are minimized. Again, that's a goal, right? So how do you test that system? The way they said is medical staff should be able to use all the system functions after 4 hours of training. Okay. See, they quantified. So here is the goal in the first bullet, and the second bullet, they show how you can measure that, right? What it says is, hey, you have to give them 4 hours of training. And after that, they start using the system. They should not have more than two errors per hour of system use. Testable, right? So as much as possible, the goal should be, it should be testable. Okay. So here is a better table there. Of how you can have different types of metrics. Metrics, of course, is speed, size of code, ease of use. In ease of use, there's something called a UI and UX design. user interface, and UX is user experience design. So there are people who specialize in user experience. There are some do's and don'ts about user experience. I don't get into that, but you can Google up on what user experience is all about. Reliability, robustness, portability, the standard computer science basic stuff that you would have learned in your beginning classes. All those things apply to any software development that you do. Okay, let me stop here for a second. Like we always do, time for some interaction here. Questions, comments. I will unmute people here. Let's have some discussion. Then we'll get into some project.
Can I go on, sir?
Yes, go ahead.
Recently, regarding requirement engineering, I recall back once I talked with one of my friend in industry. He was talking that, not to take the company's name, they were developing for a client in US the healthcare system. The healthcare system software was completely developed. It was deployed in the there at the client. It was found later on that it failed the client acceptance test, because the user acceptance test, because the end users who are using are actually above 65 years, and the software was built for below. I mean, the normal. They never thought of building the software for above 65 years, and those people don't know how to use it also.
Correct.
Just for the sake of understanding what is requirement, when you're teaching, I just recalled back what he was telling actually. And it's very important that we should understand first who are the end users of the system. First
Absolutely.
of all,
Correct.
the software was very robust, portable, reliable, everything else. Functionally, non-functionally, everything it is fine. But unfortunately, the users were unable to use that. So completely they have to, I mean,
re-architected.
Yeah, re-architected. That's what I wanted to share with you.
Absolutely. Great experience, right? Anyone else who wants to add on to it? Chakravarti garu. I'm getting some echo. Chakravarti garu, I muted you because there's a lot of echo. I'll pass on to someone else. Once your audio is solved, you can come back again. Anybody want to say anything from Gudla Valleru Engineering College? I think I will just put an acronym GEC for you guys. I'm not able to pronounce Gudla Valleru. Okay. Any faculty member present from GEC? Okay, they're quiet. Anything from Ideal? Anybody wants to say something from Ideal? Okay, nothing from there. Anything to add from Aditya Engineering College? Okay, so that's okay. But yeah, go ahead.
So actually, I would like to get all these
Go
slides. So where could I get the slides, sir, from your side?
Yes. So after the class is over, I'm going to put it in the community on Lensu platform, the slides for today's lecture, as well as the upcoming lectures, chapters 4, 5, and 6. Did you get chapters 1, 2, 3 already?
No, sir, not yet, sir.
There, let me share my screen. Okay, let me share my screen. So that's a good lead into wrapping up by showing you a few things.